Hello again. Glad to have you back. Today, I have a lovely tale from the SCP Foundation that's sure to fill you with joy, nostalgia, and warm feelings. But first, you ever get the feeling that the scariest monsters aren't the ones you were raised believing? Imagine a world where your beloved childhood pet comes back to life, but as a twisted, nightmarish version of itself. That's exactly what happened in a small town in California, and the consequences were devastating.
That sounds awful. What exactly happened?
So, the town of Lockford experienced a sudden spike in suicides, which caught the attention of investigators. But where it gets really weird, the mayor of Lockford was found dead in his home, an apparent suicide, after making a frantic call to his wife about seeing his childhood dog's ribcage, her heart, and stomach.
Jesus. Was there any explanation for these events?
That's the thing. The explanation defies all logic. The source of these horrifying visions was traced back to a single object, a Ford F-150 truck tire. But not just any tire. This one was covered in fresh animal blood that never dried or faded, a pet collar with a golden bell crushed in its treads. There was an inscription on the bell with the word shade.
A truck tire? How would that cause hallucinations? And shade? What does that even mean, a name?
I know, it sounds crazy, but here's the kicker. Simply looking at the tire was enough to trigger these visions, but only in people who didn't currently have a living pet. If you've ever owned a pet in the past, you'd see visions of that pet, usually the one you loved the most. But if you've never owned a pet, you'd see something even more terrifying.
I'm scared to even ask, but what would non-pet owners see?
They all reported seeing a large panther shrouded in black smoke. Imagine that appearing in your living room. But for those who had pets, the visions were much more personal and traumatic. Victims reported seeing distorted versions of their deceased pets, elongated limbs, matted fur, dark pits instead of eyes. And the truly horrifying part, in each hallucination, the pet would appear for a few minutes before being killed in a gruesome way. This cycle would repeat endlessly, driving people to extreme emotional distress.
That's absolutely nightmarish. How did they manage to contain it?
Well, they tried. The tire was isolated and covered with a thick cloth. All interactions with it were conducted remotely, but even with these precautions, it was still affecting people. One of the investigators started hallucinating his former pet iguana, even after they thought they had it under control.
So, what happened to the people who kept seeing these visions? It must have had a significant impact on their mental health.
You're right, it did. The effects were often fatal. People exposed to these visions experienced extreme emotional distress, leading to depression, mental instability, and, in many cases, suicidal thoughts. The investigators recorded multiple suicides directly linked to this phenomenon.
That's heartbreaking. Do you think there could be any scientific explanation for this?
Some might argue it could be a form of mass hysteria, but that doesn't explain the consistent effects or the connection to the tire. There's also the fact that 95% of the cases has resulted in the hallucinated pet being disemboweled or devoured by an unknown predator. That level of consistency is hard to explain with mass hysteria.
You're right, it seems to defy conventional explanations, which in a way makes it even more terrifying.
Absolutely. The unknown is often the most frightening thing of all, and in this case, we're dealing with something that taps into very personal, emotional experiences. It's almost as if this phenomenon is designed to cause maximum psychological damage.
That's a chilling thought. Do you think this could be some kind of intentional creation? A weapon of sorts?
It's a possibility we can't rule out. If it is artificial, it's incredibly sophisticated. It seems to tap into personal memories and emotions in a way that's hard to explain with our current understanding of science. The specificity of the hallucinations, the way it affects different people based on their pet ownership history, It all points to something far beyond our current technological capabilities.
And what about the panther vision for those who've never had pets? Why that specific image?
Another mystery. Perhaps it represents some primal fear of predators, or maybe it's connected to the entity or force behind this phenomenon. We can only speculate. What's interesting is that this panther is always described the same way, large and shrouded in black smoke. It's a consistent image across all non-pet owners who've seen it.
We still don't know who or what Shade is. This story really leaves us with more questions than answers, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And in many ways, that's what makes it so captivating and terrifying. It challenges our understanding of reality and forces us to confront the possibility that there are forces at work beyond our comprehension. It's worth noting that as of December 2nd, all experimentation with this object have been suspended indefinitely. Whatever this thing is, it's clear that it's too dangerous to mess with.
That's probably for the best. But it's frustrating to think that we might never understand what's really going on here.
I agree. It's human nature to want answers, to try to make sense of the unexplainable. But sometimes, the smartest thing we can do is admit that we don't know and take steps to protect ourselves from potential harm. In this case, that means keeping this tire locked away forever.
It's a sobering reminder of how much we still don't understand about our world.
For me, I think the key takeaway here is to appreciate the pets we have while they're with us, and to be cautious of the unexpected. It's also a stark reminder of the power of grief and how vulnerable we can be to things and events that tap into our emotions.
Definitely, well said. And maybe think twice before investigating any mysteriously bloody tires you might come across.
Oh, absolutely. You won't catch me near any bloody tire. Better safe than sorry, especially when it comes to potentially reality-altering objects. And let's not forget the human cost of this phenomenon. The mayor, the townspeople who took their own lives, the investigator still struggling with the after effects. They're all victims of something we can't even begin to understand.
It's a tragic situation all around. I hope that someday we might have the knowledge to unravel this mystery and perhaps even help those affected by it one day.
That's a noble hope. Until then, we'll have to content ourselves with the knowledge that sometimes the most ordinary things can hide the most extraordinary secrets. Thanks for exploring the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying with us once again. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your pets close.
And remember, listeners, sometimes the most mundane objects can be the most dangerous. Good night and sweet dreams, if you can have them after this story. Oh, and go give your pet a hug.